Hello everyone, not much of a choice today from London, just one decisive game, but what a game it was. Viswanathan Anand playing with the black pieces against Hikaru Nakamura. We all know that Hikaru is a very tough opponent for Viswanathan, and this game was not an exception. Hikaru chose the move d4, and after that they quickly reached a position from the Rogozin system. One that Viswanathan played against Magnus Carlsen in Leuven in 2016 and which he comfortably managed to hold. But here Hikaru Nakamura deviated from that game instead of the move queen to c2, which the world champion tried and which didn't lead to success in that particular game. Hikaru played the move e3 immediately. Then after bishop a5, bishop d3, king to f8, queen to c2, it seemed like Viswanathan is very well prepared, and he came up even with a novelty. This is the move king g7 in this situation. Prior to that one, only knight g4 has been seen, and only after that the king was going to g7. So king g7, then both of the sides continued normally with their development. King to b1, knight to b3, and it seemed to me that Hikaru liked his position a little bit better than his opponent, and indeed nobody is really troubling his king, and this is much to his liking, and he likes to attack. And after the move f4, he had a pleasant choice how exactly to mount pressure. He decided to go for rook e1, and after queen d6 he brought the second rook on the f file, which is one idea in this particular situation, but he could have also gone for a slower development with knight e2, the idea being knight to f3 followed by knight e5, and this is also very interesting. It probably gives some pull to white, but rook f1 is okay too. There is nothing wrong about that one. Anand reacted with rook e8, and on knight c5 some fireworks are already starting. First of all, black is not able to capture a pawn with bishop c5. That would be not good after queen c5 and f takes g5. He has to be careful not to lose immediately. As if he captures on g5, there is the trick rook takes f6, and the king cannot capture it because of knight e4, and the queen is hanging on c5. That one Anand obviously didn't fall for. He played rook to e7, and Nakamura blundered in this situation. He played the move queen d2. The reason for the blunder was that he explained after that he wanted to play the move queen to c1 in this particular moment of the game, but then he realized that after bishop c5, d takes c5, queen takes c5, if he captures on g5, there is the move knight to e4, and he couldn't find any advantage for himself. And indeed, after knight e4, d4, rook f4, and queen g5, black is fine. That's not the only line for black though. After f takes g5, he has also the simple capture on g5 instead of the move knight to e4. H takes g5. It seems like white is still winning with the move rook takes f6, but there is the amazing resource d4. Give me the knight and give me the rook at the same time. And on the capture on d4, rook e1, queen takes e1, queen takes d4. The rook is hanging and the bishop is hanging at the same time. The only move for white is queen e4. And now if black captures on f6, there'll be a capture on g4. But black has the fantastic move rook d8. And still the bishop is hanging and the rook is hanging. And even though white has a lot of checks and a lot of attacking ideas, it seems like black is doing perfectly fine in this position. So at the last moment, white decided to go for queen d2 to avoid this line. But here, instead of the move rook e8, which Anand played and which is returning the favor, he could have simply captured on c5. And after this c5 and queen c5, the queen is no longer hitting the one on c5. So the idea with the capture on g5 is no longer that strong, and black can simply recapture it with the pawn. There is no rook f6, king f6, knight e4. Nobody's attacking the queen on c5. And it seemed like both the players were obsessed with the idea with knight e4, and they completely forgot about this simple recapture on g5. Knight e4 here is not as convincing as before. It's after bishop takes e4, d4, rook f4, queen takes g5. The queen is indeed standing much better on d2, and it is going on d4. And white has a lot of activity. Right now he's going to capture on e4 after that, and his attack is going to be really very strong. But After the move rook to e8, now white is opening the game in his favor. He took on g5, and after h6, g5, e4, black's position is really very shaky. Any mistake could be the last one. And Anand took on e4 with the knight, to which Nakamura committed one more inaccuracy. He took on e4 with the knight from c5, rather than with the knight on c3 on e4. This capture was more convincing, and he was much better after d takes e4, rook takes e4, since the resource bishop h5, which Anand missed in the game, would have been met with queen g5, and if queen g6, this time there is the capture on e7, rook e7, rook e7, and the knight from c5 is defending the bishop. Thus white is clearly better in this case, as the two rooks are stronger than the queen. But what is the difference in comparison to the game move? After knight e4, knight 5 to e4, capture rook e4 and rook e4, instead of the move rook e4, black could have played and should have played the move bishop h5. As here, queen g5 and queen g6 is no longer convincing for white. He cannot capture on e7, as the bishop is hanging and then the rook is hanging and everything is hanging. So he would have tried something else, but everywhere black seems to be doing perfectly fine. Unfortunately for Anand, he took on e4, and things went very badly for him, because after knight e4, the white pieces reaching the opponent's king very soon, and they're doing this with tempos. On queen g6, there was the move knight f6, give me the rook, give me the queen, give me the bishop, give me everything, and Anand was forced to sacrifice the queen. But his king is still very exposed on f6, and after some very neat moves, Nakamura proved decisive advantage. Queen to c3 was one of these important moves. d5 is an unstoppable threat. On bishop d7, d5 was played, and on rook e5, another very neat move is bishop e4, which is securing some gains on this diagonal, and the king is quite badly placed on f6 still, and the rook is pinned badly as well. So g4 to take away the f3 square was played, but then capture on c6, white won a pawn, and in that particular case, black can try somehow to build a fortress, but he didn't have enough resources for that. Queen to d5 check was a nice move as well, and then the pawn went all the way to a5, depriving the bishop of the safe defense of the pawn on a7, and once that the bishop is going into a shaky position, white can do a lot of checks and finally some double attack, which is exactly what happened here. After queen e5 check and queen to f4, the bishop and the rook are too loose, and black cannot defend everything. In case of bishop e1, there is queen e4 fork of the bishop and the king, and if rook takes g2, there will be the same fork with queen e4 of the king and the rook. And that was everything from that game. Thank you, and see you for the next rounds. Enjoy the tournament.